If you want the perfect Demko for everyday carry, the AD22 is it. What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I am Brian and I'm here today with another knife review that I am very excited for because this is from my favorite knife brand, Demko, and it is a USA made everyday carry sized type of knife. It is the AD22. I just recently reviewed the Shark-A-Tac here, and this was a very kind of, I think, underrated knife for me, and that I wasn't necessarily seeking it out. I wasn't the biggest fan of the handle shape, but I absolutely love the blade on this thing. And this AD22 I've been waiting for since I think December in terms of it kind of being teased and me really being interested in it. I've come to expect a certain standard for Demko quality, especially for their USA made knives. And so this really should be quite a joy to check out. Let's get into it. All right, so this knife came from Demko directly. It is the AD22 with a MagnaCut blade in smooth titanium. Now, as we've come to expect, the MG USA made Demko knives don't come in a box that's anything to write home about, but that's not what this is about. It is all about the actual hardware itself, and initial impression is this absolutely is a much more pocketable, everyday carryable knife. So I actually religiously carry my fat carbon Nano Shark, and just in hand, this has a feel of being a large nano as opposed to a smaller, I'll say smaller compact, as opposed to a smaller compact. I mean, it is a smaller compact. It kind of sits in between, you could say. Compact, AD22, and Nano. The shape very clearly looks more like a Nano. I guess you could say the shape of the Nano actually probably was derived from an AD22. The AD22 used to be a custom-only offering from Demko, and so far I really like what I'm seeing, but the biggest thing to me is not the actual size. I did get my ruler back, so let's actually check this out. So, on a compact, we're looking at about a probably almost 5-inch handle, maybe 4 3/4. On an AD22, we're closer to 4.5. On a Nano, we're at about 3 3/4. But the big difference to me is in the thickness. So the thickness on a compact is probably 5/8 of an inch, and the thickness on a AD22 is right around a half. And kind of at that thickness, that's where you really actually, I think, kind of start to notice just how thick a knife is. So I think this is just a really fantastic size. I'm really happy and pleased with the overall dimensions of what I'm seeing here. The quality is very clearly Demko MG grade. It's exactly what I would expect kind of in hand with the feel. Really cool differentiator here with this new clip style that is ambidextrous. So you can undo the screws, you can pop it out and flip it over to the other side. That is nice being left-handed. I am used to kind of right-handed pocket carry. these days because most of my knives do not allow for this sort of thing, at least not easily. You can swap a clip on a compact, but you need another clip. You can't just reuse the clip that they provide. So this is a pretty cool touch. Let's actually try deploying this and see what we think. It does have a really nice kind of thumb slot here. Ooh. Ooh, that was nice. And this blade, this shark's foot blade, is pretty sweet looking as well. Now, interesting to note, this one is not numbered. I think that is because they plan to make this a staple of their MG lineup going forward. MG being machine ground. We've got Demko knives on the pivot as expected. We've got Wampum PA on the other side. And this is just a really solid, really nice feeling knife in a very pocketable size. The jimping on the top of the blade feels great in hand. If you remember my video about the Shark-A-Tac, you will remember my sole criticism had to do with how this shark lock kind of protrudes here, and when you've got a purchase on the handle and you've got your thumb on the jimping on the blade, it can kind of interfere a little bit with your thumb positioning. The shark lock on this AD22 is less pronounced, not nearly as tall. And so when I hold this, I don't notice that shark lock getting in the way whatsoever. So this is fantastic. The grip in hand, it feels so strong. I did want to go for the titanium handles on this knife because even Demko acknowledges that the titanium handles are going to be stronger than the G10. They said they engineered the G10 to work without liners. The titanium obviously will not have liners, but you know, G10 without liners is not going to be as strong as a titanium scale. I think that's just to be expected. They did say the G10 is engineered to be as strong as it needs to be for the knife size, and I believe them. But again, I'm just really partial to the titanium scales. I even made a video about the difference and why I personally prefer the titanium scales. We've got the patented shark lock that, again, being left-handed, I just am absolutely in love with from a usability perspective. I don't have to put my thumb or finger in the way of a frame lock to release the blade. Deployment, fantastic. Acoustics, pretty good. I can totally see this becoming a replacement for my everyday carry Nano. I absolutely can see carrying this one instead. The weight doesn't feel too bad. Let's see where it comes in. 5.4 ounces. How does that compare to... The Shark-A-Tac was the lightest of the rest of my Demkos. So let's see here. 6.4. So it's a whole ounce lighter than the Shark-A-Tac. And it just gets better from there in terms of other knives. So 7.2 for a compact, 8.2 for a full-size AD20. And if we're looking at the sizes of all of these, you can see the AD22 really comes in at a pretty sweet spot in terms of its overall dimensions for everyday carry. Shuffle these a little bit here to get everything in one shot, but we've got a full-size AD20 here, a compact AD20, the Shark-A-Tac, the AD22, and a Nano Shark. And yeah, I think they just really hit a home run with this. I think it is a fantastic size, a fantastic shape. It feels amazing in the hand. I've got zero complaints about this. Not that I really ever have complaints about the Demkos that I've got, but this is just an absolutely wonderful knife. Maybe the one complaint, if there was a complaint, and it's not really fair because everything in this world is getting more expensive, but I think that these compacts originally came in at a $650 price point last year for something like this. This is a $700 price point, and you've got kind of a lot less of everything. You've got less material in the scales, you've got less material in the blade thickness. I'm assuming the stock on this is the 125 to 130 inch versus the 0.180 inch in the compact. But the reality of this is, you know, everything is getting more expensive, and so prices naturally need to go up over time, and the manufacturing cost of this is probably much more into the labor than it is the actual materials. So I don't really fault them on this. I'm just pointing out that, you know, the price point for this is pretty high. And I'm okay with it because the quality is fantastic. One thing I also notice here is I like the positioning of the Shark Lock release. If you look at the compact, they've got the bevel cut out so you can gain access a little bit easier here. But the positioning is a little bit high. It's maybe 1/3 of the way up the bevel, whereas the positioning on the release here is actually right underneath. So you can get your finger in there real nice and just release it, and I like that. I like that positioning better. I really like what they've done there. And you can see the difference on the Shark-A-Tac. Again, it's maybe 1/3 of the way up there. So the issue that I had with the release on this perhaps could have been mitigated a bit if they had made it lower and less pronounced, which they have done here. Centering on this, let's have a look. Looks pretty perfectly centered. We do have MagnaCut laser engraved on the blade. What is the blade length? Looking at about 3 inches. 3-inch cutting edge. Just really fantastic. I really don't know what else there is to say about this. Man, it's hard. I want to say this could be my favorite Demko. Now, I think it will become my favorite Demko for everyday carry for sure. I think that's a given. I think that's a fair statement and assessment of what this knife is. I think just from a, you know, what is Demko? What do they have to offer? What can they do? This might be kind of the favorite. This might be the representation of, like, if I could only have one Demko knife, what would it be? It would have to be this one. This is a compact sax. Looks pretty similar. It's a little bit heavier, a little bit larger, has the same blade stock thickness, but is just a little bit larger overall. And the reason that I like this one is because it's got a dynamic grind on the blade itself that is just kind of like a feat of engineering, where the thickness of the blade stock actually gets larger and more pronounced as you go out towards the tip of this blade. Really just a fascinating piece of engineering. I'm sure it took them a lot more time to both manufacture and produce this design than it did to do this. But if I just had to carry one, if I had to pick one as the one that goes in my pocket every day, it's going to be the AD22. And it's going to be the AD22 because that little extra length that you lose off the back, you know, probably 4 5/8 to 4 3/8. The way it just kind of feels overall, the total length between the two when it's open. I mean, they're very, very close, but for whatever reason, I can't quite explain it. Maybe it's the overall thickness? What is it? What is it about the 22 that just makes it feel so much more compact in hand and when you're looking at it? We got 1 3/4 versus 1 what is that? 1/16, 1 9/16. Those little tiny adjustments, those kind of minute tweaks to the overall dimensions leave you with a package that just feels so much better for everyday carry. So I guess the conclusion I would draw for this video is, if you want the perfect Demko for everyday carry, the AD22 is it. You absolutely cannot go wrong with this. I highly recommend it. I'm very impressed with what I see. And that's all I've got for this one. So please let me know what you think of this knife in the comments. I appreciate you, and I will see you at the next one soon.